Ladies and gentlemen, we are back on Otherworld for the third match in this set between Scoler and neblime. Scoler, our XD man who has said HF, is now going to be on the top side playing Terran, still going up against neblime's Zerg, so this is a rematch of the previous one, you can say, a redo, but with different spawns. And obviously this is, again, still an older version of Otherworld. It doesn't have some other changes that I made to it to increase defensibility of the mains because it's so far away from the ramp. Anyway, all that to be said, you know, what else do you got? What else is going on here, right? There's probably going to be more updates to Otherworld, actually, ahead of Ascension 5, so you can look forward to that. Thinking something like taking this natural and digging in the cliff a little bit to minimize the fact that the ramp is so far away, right? Like, we push this whole thing up, and suddenly your natural is a little bit closer. If you want to take the base that's closer to your opponent, that's, like, in the direction of your opponent, you'd still have to go a little bit of a hike to go this way. But I might restructure some more of that, too. We will see. Generally speaking, I think I'm getting a better idea of how, like, elegant the spacing of the map needs to be for any one purpose. But we'll talk about that later, because right now we got to talk about the fact that our lemon, not lime, lemon Scoler versus the light olive neblime, the matchup is going with a stockade first, similar to the previous one. And this time around, it looks like neblime, despite harvesting a lot of gas early, is going to be banking a lot of minerals. This is not very optimized as far as the build goes. I'm not sure if there's a reason for him doing it this way, because he did this the last time as well, where it looked like maybe he would go for fast expansion, but he doesn't. So I don't know if he likes to wait for like more workers or something, but it feels like it's not optimized anyway, because you're floating so many minerals that you can't immediately use, and it's not like, you know, you could have harvested the gas sooner, so it's not like it was a requirement to do it that way. Anyway, we do have the Hydrith Den about halfway done. Star pad to add to the roster here, but the Maverick is not positioned at the ramp, so the Drolith will get a pretty easy scout in. Does click on that, realizes it's not a Fulcrum because they have the same construction graphic. Stim pack for the Maverick to try to chase down the Drolith. Doesn't look like it'll be chaseable. Will he know? Does he realize? It doesn't look like he realizes. He just pulls away. So obviously the Drolith can just unburrow at that point, and indeed it does. Cyprian on the way here. So first 175 gas already accounted for Scoler. He's going to be continuing to harvest that with some pace, and the macro hatch over here for the in base. I got mixed feedback, by the way. I was saying, like, yeah, somebody told me they use the arrow keys. Well, I think you're gonna have to deal with mouse movement for now because some people didn't like that. So, you know, just I'll just keep it as it is. The one thing that I will say though is that I did have a talk with Veek about potentially using the middle mouse scroll. As you can see, is very jumpy and jittery and stuff. I'm deliberately going a little bit slow here, but you can go super far, super quickly. Eventually, if we smooth that out a little bit, that'll be a pretty good feature. And then also there is the Alt-C to center on your unit, but if you hold it, it just updates every so often, and this is not very pleasant to look at either. So I think we can basically replace... Control-C also does this. If we Alt-C it, we should probably replace the Alt-C feature specifically with like a smoother panning that just locks on. It's like a toggle. You just press it once, and then you press it again, or like move the camera or whatever. And that will help out a lot, I think, for general observing of scouts and stuff like that. We'll just have those kinds of features. Anyway, the Skither Core has indeed made it to there just for a scout. A Hydralisk is here to ward away the Wraith. There's a Kagrant that was made when the scout was confirmed for that star pad. And there's a pretty decent bio ball with a second stockade coming. Doesn't look like Scholar's interested in expanding anytime soon, but he can certainly pressure out more static defense. I mean, he's already pressured out one of the Droleths to be used into this Spraith. He is pressuring more Hydras. You know, slowly but surely. There's going to be 5 by the time this bio push gets here. And the Skither Core does scout a small movement. That might be puzzling to neblime, right? Because if you think about it, the way that neblime's working right now is he's probably thinking, oh, there's, you know, going to be a couple of units here or whatever. I don't know what the Droleth is here. I think that's a battle Droleth. That's going to be a battle worker. But yeah, the Cyprians are out here. If you keep even Cyprian count to the Hydra count, you can definitely do some pretty good damage here. And the Wraith is even going to go ahead and reveal the units. So he'll get the worker at the very least. Or he'll zone the worker away, apparently, but he won't get the worker. Cyprians are still alive, so they are doing a pretty decent amount of damage. But the lack of focus fire is definitely hurting him here. There's a second Wraith that joined the fight, but wasn't really involved in the fight for very long. So this attack could have been microed a lot better by Scoler, and he will end up losing out on a military advantage. And now does have enough money to go for a ministry and is going to go ahead and do that. The Wraiths are, one of them is really wounded. So depending on what happens here, that is going to be a bit obnoxious. It looks like the Mason will be safeguarded by the Wraith, and the Wraiths were not clicked on by neblime, so he didn't realize that he could have just picked one off and then fought the other one, due to the armor, of course, of the Skither Core being greater than 0. Although I guess in this case, it is still dealing 10 damage actually, visually, that's a lie, because it's supposed to be... It shoots 2 projectiles, right? So we might even want to change that at some point, but... Just so that it's visual, there's increased visual clarity. It's not in this version of the project that the replay is being played on, or the match was played on, but the Fulcrum Vulture, the Vulture did get adjusted to be faster and to visibly shoot 2 projectiles instead of just 1 for that exact purpose. So it seems like weird that we have this case with the Wraith where it fires 2 shots, but you know what I mean. It's just a bit silly. Anyway, we do have another base being set up here. Excuse me. So the fact that we have the Ministry and the Hatteras at roughly the same time, obviously the Hatteras does complete a little bit faster, so it's good on Scoler that he was able to keep this alive. Looks like the Scythicore did end up dying there. And we do have a Vestry add-on here as well, and a 4th Stockade coming, so sticking to Bio, very similar to stock Starcraft for Scoler, that's his approach. But he is going to be down a half a base. And this area over here is a lot easier to be sieged, right? I did add some other terrain to make this a little bit less open in somewhat recent versions of this map, but obviously that's not the version they're playing on. So you will see this be very, very easy to attack into, particularly if you can get to this position or this position, especially with the cliff advantage. Finally, we will have the one of the Wraiths is still a little bit damaged, but we'll finally have that. There's 11 Hydras moving out on the map. That is the bulk of Neblime's army. He does have an Ovaleth as well to scout out for Wraith moves. There's an Iziracore. He's starting to add more workers. He's actually behind in workers compared to his opponent, which is a pretty rare sight because he has invested so heavily into military. And I think that kind of speaks to Scoler's, willingness to move out on the map, be aggressive, posture, harass. He's getting a little bit more comfortable with being a little bit more forward-facing. But he is also pulling his army back at the same time as his opponent is moving his army down. So I don't know what that's about. I don't know why he's decided to do that move. He finished an anchor just in time for it to buy sufficient time and aggro for his opponent to start attacking. But there are some Harakans here, and the first Iziracore of the 4 that are here, actually all 3 out of 4, yeah, they're completely down. The army is split. Some workers did die, but he's still maintaining a worker advantage. One of them is even fighting this Hydralisk here and even doesn't get a kill, but it does get some damage dealt. And obviously blocks the clean attack move back in, which is always good. If his army was there, that would have been a much more crushing blow for Neblime, where he would have just outright lost a lot of forces, or maybe he wouldn't have committed to the attack at all. It's hard to say. There's a Spraith at each one of these bases, and the Ovaleth even reveals the Wraiths for a short time before they get scattered around. I am looking around for a corpse, because there's only 2 Wraiths alive, and they're worth 3, but it doesn't look like I can spot it, so it may have died in some difficult-to-see spot. We do see some Kagrants being mutated over here. There is a gas bank, but that's another thing that you have to kind of intuit. There is, by the way, enough money for an Atlas. We'll see if he drops that sooner rather than later, because Scoler is now floating a lot of gas. Yep, he just put it down somewhere. Looks like over here by his base. This is a little bit scary, because you obviously might want to, have this be put down next to a watchdog, right, for anti-air defense, just so that it's one less thing that can go wrong. But in this case, we know Neblime isn't building a lot of air units, right, so it's not the end of the world. He's sticking to his Hydrith, getting another macro hatch, not interested in expanding just yet, and he has caught up in workers now because of his larva production, but he is going to be down in terms of the tech timing. And that is definitely going to be significant to know. Again, if Scoler had pressured after, having such a decisive victory versus the military of Neblime, I think he would have been in a pretty good spot here to force a lot of gas expenditure before the Iral Iris happened. But even now that the Iral Iris is there, there's no Zorkas coming, there's no Quazeth coming, so it's really sticking to Hydra. You can definitely bust this with the military that is being fielded here by Scoler. I mean, he has a bunch of workers in terms of general, or a bunch of stockades, right? He has 5 stockade production. He's queued up a couple of ant seals. I think he can make a push here relatively soon. He's just generally moving his... Oh, I see. The Wraiths were over here. I was wondering why he was moving his camera over there. But yeah, that explains it. So he scouts around, sees the base. I think he should feel pretty confident. He probably saw the unit count, and he should feel confident in pushing here and breaking. So especially with that first ant seal out, he's not going to worry about Lakizilisks, which actually we know don't even exist right now because he's going to have a detection. He is adding a captaincy. A couple of those now that his Atlas is done. But yeah, he really needs to get a move on here because the Iral Iris is close to being done. So there's still like another maybe 45 seconds to a minute before any Hydras can turn into Bactyls and really start punishing the move. And of course the Anciel charging forward valiantly to get sniped is a bit stupid, so that's a little bit awkward. But now he can still go for a very fast timing here because he saw those mutate. So he really should be getting a move on now because there's like that period of time where they're mutating, but obviously it's fairly fast right now. He's struggling a little bit with the group pathfinding because he selected a bunch of units across the whole map. He can still make a move to bust this, especially if he hugs the left-hand side and tries to fight around that. But yeah, he's going to start to get chewed up a little bit. There is another Anciel, but obviously it wasn't rallied down, so that's a little bit awkward. And he is going to try to make a push over here. He needs to send Herakans onto the Scortrets to rend their armor. That is definitely going to be effective. The first one is already fallen. And the armory is actually being held back here. We have some Irolets over here, but is that really going to be super useful? 2 out of the 3 Scortrets have been popped. Their army is... There's no, movement of the rest of the army back at home. And this Scortreth will actually isolate and kill this army of Bio here, because it's by itself and they're not really being sieged. There's no more Herakans for the front line, etc. But the 2 Cyprians can definitely occupy some stuff, and he absolutely should be training more units in general. He does have a couple of Madcaps coming out. He's got a Covenant, interestingly enough, but he's adding mostly Cyprians, which is not necessarily what you need there. And I still don't think that he's in a pretty good spot, overall. I feel like neblime is going to be able to stabilize. Now, he's doing the silly move where he tried this in Ascension Finals, where he loads up the advanced defenses, or in this case, not advanced defenses. A couple of those are circuits. But he also has not made his Backdeath or any Tier 2 tech. The only Tier 2 stuff he's made are Iroleths and Scortreths and stuff, right? So we get to see a little bit of his practice before the finals. There is a base being set up here by Scoler, and he is adding a starport. I'm sure he'll be interested in adding more things, but he's going to be caught out of position by the rest of this attack coming in here. It looks like, yeah, we've got 2 circuits and 2 Scortreths. I mean, any air units would obviously shut this down, but the starport isn't being... used yet because it's not done, and obviously there's nothing to protect this left-hand side. I guess you could see a drop onto the Atlas specifically, but again, you can just lift off in that situation. I think the first thing he's going to do is probably just try to deny the Ministry, which obviously can just be canceled, right? So this is probably the first time Scholar's ever seen something like this. I think he should just attack, but what is he going to do as a result of this, right? I don't know if he canceled that. I wasn't paying attention. Obviously the DPS is quite high for those. What's his plan? What's his game plan here? Cops are coming. Sirens out. This is before the Kagra fix, apparently, so bit unfortunate there for neblime, but I don't think he was planning. I think you could put down a new Kagra and then that'll fix it, but I'm not 100% sure how that works. Yeah, dropping right onto the production. There's a couple of units over here, but nothing that can outrange it. Again, there is a Gorgon coming. That'll take care of the rest of this. And the big engagement is here. There's not really that many units, so I think this Bio Ball will just annihilate what is being fielded here by neblime. He can't engage into the Cyprians because there were so many made, and the Clerics are keeping most of them alive. Yeah, there goes the static defense. This base is going to get chewed up. The Gorgon, when it comes out, is just going to take care of all of this, even if it's very slow, and he can lift off the rest of his stuff without any real worry. Obviously, shutting down the mining of one of the bases. This one was just set up, but it's only minerals, no gas. We do have some Bactyls finally coming, so I guess that will hold off this attack. And maybe then the tempo advantage is definitely in favor of neblime due to this move. I'm actually kind of surprised that the Iroleths withdrew, because now they can't actually restructure those things, right? He should just try to focus this base down and then fall back. Indeed, he is going to be able to do that. He'll even mop up the Zethrakors. It's a little bit wasteful for neblime to attack into them with Zeths at this point, because he does actually sacrifice any potential front line that he could have had there. So now he only has the Bactyls, pretty much. He does, funnily enough, he has 2 Hydras there. And yeah. Okay, so unfortunately, yeah, Scholar's just going to go ahead and GG out there. But realistically speaking, I think if he sharpened his timings a little bit in this match, he absolutely could have won. He could have won when he could have forced gas to be spent in order for neblime to even stay alive. If he had attacked earlier on, he could have absolutely forced neblime. He could have just killed him once the gas was actually spent, because then there was no recourse. Like, if you think about it, that's probably the optimal timing. And then that gimmicky strategy that was done by neblime does give him the W, but it's clearly not a good strategy. And he just ended up getting owned by a better player when he played the Grand Finals anyway. So we kind of know that it's not a great strategy already. But anyway, it was kind of an entertaining game, showcasing some of the unique mechanics. It's just, I don't think you can do that before you get Bactyls in that matchup. Like, the bio is too strong for if you decided not to get Lachesis and not to get Zorkas because you wanted to get a faster tier 2 timing, you need to make sure you're spending your money on what matters. So anyway, that's the match. Unfortunately, Scoler is kind of getting dumpstered here, but that's going to close out our Otherworld games, and instead we'll be jumping over to a different map for the next 3 games in this set. Again, assuming the replays work out all fine, which so far they have. So shout out that, and I'll see you guys in the next video.